Welcome to Igniting the CEO Within podcast, where we interview successful, high-level professionals to discover lessons they've learned throughout their career that can help ignite that CEO within you. I'm Mark McFatridge, and I'll be your host for the next 15 minutes or so. Our show is sponsored by Quaid, a nationwide community of CEOs and entrepreneurs. Quaid has developed Launchpad, which offers an opportunity for fractional execs to become licensed circle directors and earn significant recurring revenues. After completing the Launchpad program, you'll lead your own peer advisory circles, helping other CEOs and entrepreneurs excel in their professional and personal lives while providing a community of accountability, challenge, and support. If you'd like to learn more, go to quaidcircle.com. On our show today, we have Joel Arnold, founder and CEO of Arnold GTM Advisors in Chicago, Illinois. Joel, thank you for joining us. I'm excited to talk to you today.
I'm excited to talk to you as well, Mark.
Hey, man, in your line of work, you get exposure to just a ton of different leaders, CEOs, managers, all this kind of stuff. You've certainly seen the difference between really excellent leaders and maybe not so excellent leaders.
Mm-hmm.
If you could narrow it down to one or two things, like what separates those two?
You know what? In my past history, I have gotten to both see how they work, obviously as an advisor of sorts, but also just in my days when I was internal to organizations, that there's a sort of a calmness under pressure that I think exudes a competency that people tend to feel comfortable around and to feel comfortable following others. I think when you think about leadership, you think of somebody that you want to follow. And personally, I want to follow somebody who is even keel and sees things from multiple perspectives. So I think the primary thing for me is just a sense of calm, even when times get tough. And I'd go from there. Yeah.
Do you? I like that. I think that's really interesting. Do you think that's innate, or can that be learned?
I think it's definitely something that can be learned, but I think it does take a little bit of time to cultivate. So it's not something that's natural to most of us, and certainly not myself. But I think it comes with developing a skill set over time. Generally, prior to being an executive, right? You're learning a skill set, and just the kind of people that master that it sort of start to exude a confidence in that domain that I think carries forward when they start to take leadership roles if they spend the same amount of effort developing themselves in it as a manager, as a director, as a VP, as a leader, just in general.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, I'll share a story growing up. In my bathroom as a youth, my mom had this picture and it was painted. It was a duck and it said, always remain like, or always act like a duck, remain calm and unruffled on the top, but paddle like heck underneath.
Yeah.
And I think, and again, I agree with you. I don't necessarily think that ability is innate, but I do think it's learned. And I think you have to see that a lot, and you have to learn it, and you have to contemplate it a lot, and then start to put it into action to allow
Hmm.
that to happen.
Hmm.
And maybe that started with me. Maybe it's because I'm a Libra and I'm balanced anyway. But that's certainly been a trait of mine, and I think it's played very well
Hmm.
for those who don't like it. Our natural reaction is to react, right, to
Hmm.
good and bad and have emotion and all that kind of stuff. I
Hmm.
don't think you're saying don't have emotion, right?
No, not at all, not at all. But I got some really good advice. I was lucky enough to work for a pretty prominent private equity firm for a bit, and when I was going through some of their management training, there was one thing in particular that really stood out to me that they trained us on, and it was it's that EQ stuff. It's always remember that everything you do leaves an emotional wake, and try
Yeah.
to be conscious of that wake that you're leaving behind, because when it hits somebody, you're not even going to be in the room anymore. You're going to be moving on to something else. But like the anxiety, the excitement, or the depression, all this sort of stuff, it changes the way that people talk about everything. And if you're a leader, you're going to affect everybody in an organization. So just being aware of that is a real thing, is a really big deal. And the other thing that I think really has helped me is, when you're a manager, it's hard to play the game of, should I lean in and sort of take over for this project that's not going well, or this person that's struggling, or should I, let them kind of make mistakes and fix things on your own, when your job is to make sure that things are done right. So, you might say, incentivized not to allow mistakes to happen. I I got some really good advice there as well, where it's kind of like, talk with the person and understand their comfort level with the major task that you're giving them. And if they're going to if they don't feel entirely comfortable or could use a little bit of help, like, lean in those cases. But in cases where, this person has done this 100 times, don't lean in so much. And so you actually tend to treat people differently and kind of meet people where they're at. And just by understanding that, and not treating everybody on your team the same out of the sake of fairness or whatever, but actually getting to know people a little bit more, and levering that up or down, goes a long way to making a general team feel comfortable with your leadership style. And you avoid the worry that you're a micromanager. You avoid the fear that you're going to come down on them when they make mistakes. You avoid a lot of the things that a lot of people complain about their leadership on, or about.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. And you mentioned it earlier, right? That's really emotional intelligence, right? All
Yeah.
of that is emotional intelligence. And to me, and I'd love your thought on that. Emotional intelligence starts with knowing who you are, right? That
Hmm.
self-awareness piece.
Yeah.
And if you aren't, my opinion, if you're not self-aware, if you don't know what your wake looks like when you're leaving the room, or whatever, um, that's really hard to get into that next level, which is that emotional intelligence piece.
Yeah. Well, I also think emotional intelligence can be learned. So
Hmm.
there's a natural talent to it, uh, just like there is to IQ. But if you have a 100 IQ versus 110 IQ, you can still learn the same things. It's just going to take maybe you a little bit longer. Maybe you're not naturally inclined to it. I tend to think the same way about emotional intelligence. You might just not be aware that you you're leaving behind that wake if you're reacting a certain way, because you're in the moments and you are you, and you don't know any other way. And so, molding that, developing that, maybe getting an outside third party to
Hmm.
sort of validate or disprove the things that you think about yourself, is a really healthy place to be. So I would suggest, if you're in a state where you can ask that, I think you're in a much better place than without.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that, ideally you have a manager or somebody who's leading you that will step in and say, "Hey, let's walk that back."
Hmm.
If you don't, I think you have to have that desire, that sense of urgency to go out and find somebody who can do that for you, whether it's
Yes.
a mentor or a coach or something along those lines.
Hmm.
Have you have what roles have mentors or coaches played in your life?
Yeah. So, in a business context, I've always sought out mentorship. Um, I've actually, on many occasions, gone to HR and asked to have like a 360 or something done, just
Uh-huh,
so I could get a sense, at least once, let's say once a year, of how I'm doing. You would assume that most places do quarterly reviews or annual reviews or some kind of review process, but a lot of companies still don't do that stuff.
uh-huh.
Um, I feel like that's an absolute must do. So, I would recommend, if anybody's not getting that naturally, that they seek that out. And then, find somebody that you hold in high regard, and ask them if they would, give you honest feedback on a periodic basis. I'm sure they would. I'm sure most people would.
Yeah, I like that. I've been I want to run this by you. I've been working on the concept of a book. I think I have about 4 books in my head that I just have never put anything down on paper. But
Sure.
one of the concepts that I'm working on is something to the effect of people need, um, let's see, people need allies, people need advisors, and wha- obviously this is really well thought out, and they need, uh gosh, I'm blanking on the third. They need advocates. So they need allies, they need advisors, and they need advocates. So
Mm,
allies in my mind are a little bit more than friends, but they're typically like situated people. So maybe you're all college graduates, you're all, whatever, first year, first time employees in this one company.
Mhm.
And the role that those allies play is to almost be a cheerleader for you, right? Like, yeah, that's a great idea. That's brilliant, blah, blah, blah. And you need that, right? I mean, you want to have that support, that positive support. In the long scheme of things, they're really not going to play a big role in helping you get there because they're not
Mhm.
being independent. They're not really cheering, or they're not really, providing you any connections or anything like that. The next level are advisors, and those are really mentors, right? Those are
Mhm.
folks that have some experience, that see something in you. They want to bring it out. They're not going to be a cheerleader. They're going to say, nah, I don't know that
Mhm.
that's a great idea. They're going to say, have you thought about this? But again, still not necessarily taking you to that next level.
Mhm.
That third level are the advocates, and those are the people that absolutely see something inside of you. They've taken a liking to you. They believe that you have something more to give, that your potential is huge. And most importantly, they're talking about you in rooms that you're not in. So they're
Mhm.
advocating for you to go to that next level. And those become the real important ones. The
Mhm.
challenge is learning how, like, it gets really comfortable to hang out with the allies, right? Because they're out there cheering you on and all that.
Mhm.
The advisors are like your dad or your grandpa, right? They're like,
Mhm.
you know, all that. But trying to find those advocates. Talk about the role of advocate in your life. Has somebody seen something in you that said that you didn't even know was working behind the scenes, and was like, hey, you need to get to know this Joel guy, and that's opened up
Mhm.
some opportunities for you.
Yeah, I've definitely had one or two of those. I wouldn't say they're as common as you would want them to be, but
Yeah.
yeah, I've definitely benefited from having a couple of people that took a shine to me. Um, I actually think that if you're thinking about developing yourself as a leader, there's a bit of this is it's also sort of like play it forward. So how can think about ways that you could have become an advocate and ways that, or I guess the people that you would want to be an advocate for. Um, and I think if you do that kind of thing, you'll also be seen as more of a leader, and therefore it's more likely to get that virtuous cycle going of, wow, look how he's doing well at this lower tier thing. Um, Maybe he's right for a higher role within the organization. Um, there's there's a thing that I always have tried to do when I've been a manager of a direct team, and I've had teams as large as 13 that were rolling up to me, so pretty big teams at times. And it's always just making sure that, like, in the long term, I don't want the people on this team to be here till their retirement,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
everybody's going to go somewhere else,
Yeah.
and I want to make sure that everybody, when they leave here, they go to a better job. That it's not lateral, it's not down, it's upwards, or I suppose not working anymore because they've made a bunch of money and they're retired now and living on a
Right.
beach somewhere. So, um, figuring out the path to that and helping other people figure out the path to that will lead you or put you in a place where that sort of advocacy is natural.
Yeah. I agree with that 100%. I think in reality, leaders have two roles. One is the one that you just talked about, right? How do you promote people? How do you get them to their potential,
Hmm.
whether it's within your organization or not? 1,000% agree. I think the other role is to remove obstacles so people can be successful, right?
Yeah.
I think those
Yeah.
those are two big things that leaders do, and we try to make it way more difficult than it is. But if you're doing those two things are going pretty good.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, we've neglected you have to drive business results in most cases or organizational results in most cases as well. So there's a competency in that that has to go along with it. But, they are tied hand in hand. And at
Yeah.
the end of the day, it's a people business, right? So, Um, I wholeheartedly agree with what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Well, okay. This is cool. This has been a great conversation. Thank you for your insights. One
Sure.
question that I like to end with is if you think back and you look at 21-year-old Joel, who's hanging out in Bloomington at one of the bars, what is one thing that you've learned that you wish 21-year-old Joel would have known at that point?
Um, Gosh, that's a really good question. You know, I think worry less about dollars and cents and more about learning opportunities and relationships. Um, I was pretty focused, coming out of my undergrad business school education, trying to get the hot job and the sexy lifestyle and all that kind of stuff. But in reality, like I think that stuff will naturally come to the people that work hard and have a mind for it. And I maybe would have had a little bit more of a relationship focus, and the people that were around me, I would have built better relationships and had, I don't know, more friends, more of a network, um, more of a human centric lifestyle for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's good advice. Yeah, that's great advice. I think, one of the things that I learned really early on was, life is about experiences,
Mm,
and that I did not heed that advice until I was a father, and finally allowed that to happen for my kids.
mhm.
But similar to what you're saying, I think really enjoy that experience as opposed to just be laser focused on career and all that good stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
Joel, this has been really cool. I really appreciate you taking the time.
of
Talk
course.
about Arnold GTM Advisors and what does an engagement look like with you? What are the business focus that you work on a daily basis? And then most importantly, how do people get a hold of you?
Sure. So, Arnold Go to Market Advisors is based upon myself and a small number of folks that work with me um, in go to market topics, but not in the sense of running your sales organization or writing your marketing copy. We work more behind the scenes. So you could think of go to market engineering, you could think of revenue operations, of sales operations, marketing operations, that kind of thing. So our expertise sits there. We've got decades of experience leading and advising in that domain. And we work with companies in largely, say, call it renewal and retention kind of businesses,
Hmm.
B2B usually. So if you're in a B2B business in which retaining customers and growing customers is a model as opposed to more transactional kind of approach, then we can most certainly help out. So best way to get a hold of us is honestly just email me. You can go to arnoldgtmadvisors.com, or you can go and just email me directly. My email address is joel@arnoldgtmadvisors.com. And I'd be happy to get a conversation started to see how we could help you and your business out.
Love it. Joel, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a blast.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mark.
All right, y'all. We've done it again. Found another great leader who has just some great insights that he was willing to share. Really thankful for Joel joining us. As we wrap this up, I want to remind you that Igniting the CEO Within is sponsored by Quaid, a nationwide community of CEOs and entrepreneurs. Quaid has created Launchpad, which provides an exciting opportunity for fractional execs to become licensed circle directors and earn significant annual recurring revenues. To find out more, visit quaidcircle.com. Until next time, keep igniting that CEO within you. I'm Mark McFatridge. Thanks for listening.